All praises to God Almighty. I praise God for His mercy showering upon us. A very good evening to one and all. At the very outset, I would like to thank the Honorable Vice Chancellor of Tamil Nadu Teachers Education University, Chennai, most respected Registrar and Dean of Tamil Nadu Teachers Education University, the Principal of NSS Training College, Pandalam, and all the organizers of the 7 days online international webinar on the title, Honoring Students' Diversities, Mechanisms and Practices. I really congratulate and appreciate the whole team for selecting such a wonderful topic and providing a platform for all the learners to have wonderful discussions about diversity and inclusion in all these 6 days, and this is the 7th day. I thank all the distinguished members for giving me this opportunity to present my views about diversity and inclusion as a practitioner, practicing it to my level best. Diversity and inclusion. Diversity and inclusion is a term you have probably heard several times by now. The concept has continued to gain attention and attraction, of course, and it is the hottest topic everywhere. Words like diversity and inclusion appear foreign countries and India, and it is our culture and belief value systems also. In fact, the topic of diversity and inclusion in India is not new to us. We have a history of positive initiatives in the corporate world. People have been talking about it for a few decades and now, but very few companies actually made this diversity and inclusion a priority. And in schools and colleges, we are doing it for a long time, I believe. What is diversity? Diversity includes all differences that define each of us unique individuals personally in terms of age, religion, education, experience, personality, knowledge, skill sets, and sexual orientation. In the educational settings, diversity involves all aspects of identity and experience, including nationality, ethnicity, language, gender, sexuality, value system, social economic context, and family structure, age, ability, educational background, and learning styles. Inclusion means that all people, regardless of their abilities, disabilities, age, or health care needs, have the right to be respected and appreciated as valuable members of their communities and other communities also throughout the world, participate in all recreational activities in neighborhood settings, irrespective of their disability, and it is understood in terms of community such as culture, ethnicity, race, gender, and nationality. It means understanding that each individual is unique and recognizing our individual differences. Now I'll play a very short video. It's a 1-minute video. It gives a definition of what is inclusion. for watching. Diversity and inclusion is all about understanding each other and moving beyond simple tolerance to embracing and celebrating the rich dimensions of diversity contained within each individual. In the past 6 days, we listened to wonderful lectures and we listened to very thought-provoking sessions. Many questions were raised and all questions were answered effectively. Generally, we have some idea about diversity and inclusion. After these 6 days, our thoughts enhanced more about the hot topic diversity and inclusion. God created each and every one of us with grace and splendor. We are very good in nature, but sometimes we lack simple tolerance and we lack understanding and we exclude people with unconscious bias and black spots. This day is a time to examine ourselves. With what bias I exclude people? What? I exclude people? No way. I exclude people? No way at all. If you say like that, then it is highly welcoming quality. All right, let us examine ourselves. I raise 3 questions to my audience. The first question comes like this. Do we treat everyone equally? Are we treated by everyone equally and everywhere? What is our privilege as a human being? You can put your answers in the chat box. I'll give you just 10 seconds. Yes. Yes, some says yes, some says, of course, yes only, most of the time. Okay, fine. We'll proceed. Learn to understand and recognize our privilege. Learning to recognize and understand our privilege is our first privilege, according to me. What is your privilege? What is my privilege? Gender, education, socio-economic privilege, religious privilege, heterosexual privilege, and recently human rights, and more and more. That first comes education privilege. We all know pretty well about free school education in India after independence, after COVID-19. But when it comes to higher education, poverty is a major barrier for a long time. We know very well how many brainies in our society have lost their education, lost the future, and they lost even their precious life. A recent data says, presently there are 35 crore students in India. With the COVID-19 hitting India, all schools are being told to move to online teaching. In many of our rural areas, there is low internet facilities and electricity. The internet is available to only 50% of the population, and people can get access only if they can pay for the service. 65% of the whole population either has no electricity, a reduced power supply, or simply they cannot afford to pay electricity bills. Already poor and middle class parents are stretched beyond their means to pay for fees, books and clothes, and now they are told to buy computers or smartphones and to pay for the internet to access online education. This massive unexpected burden on families push millions of school students out of education. Then comes socio-economic privilege. You are seeing the slum schools of India now. Socio-economic privilege actually doesn't mean being super rich. Socio-economic privilege means being able to afford to go to schools and college. Socio-economic status is the social standing or class of an individual or group. It is often measured as a combination of education, income, and occupation. Socio-economic privilege, according to me, is that one has enough food, clothing, shelter, fulfillment of basic needs, and civic amenities and education. Can we say this socio-economic privilege is a reach to all our students? It is a question. Then comes gender privilege. Most gender privileges are given to males. I'm not a feminist, And I respect all men, but I wish to have personal and social equalities of all humankind and not mankind. It is evident and focused that some of the privileges that men enjoying is based on gender and how their use of power affected the lives of women. If we look closely at the social status of women and men, we can see that men continue to have privilege over women in many aspects of life. These privileges are obvious, such as being paid more. Women can't even win on that front. And in this slide, in this juncture, I would like to mention some of the inclusive pronouns. Use inclusive personal pronouns in your talk. Normally, we use personal pronouns he, she, him, and her to mention male and female. Currently, there is a change in using these pronouns. Now, people started using gender neutral or gender inclusive pronouns. What are these gender inclusive pronouns? A gender neutral or gender inclusive pronouns is a pronoun which does not associate a gender with the individual who is being discussed. He or she is changed as Z or C, E, V, E, etc. Him or her is Zim, C, M. Her or her, his is there, here, air, whiz. His or her is these, hers. Himself or herself as Z self or herself. These pronouns are all inclusive pronouns. Now it's now started appearing everywhere. I have given a table of gender inclusive words. All are common words we already know. I am giving it here to remind and just focusing light on it. We often use pronouns in our writing. Academic writers have to ensure they are not presenting a bias by assuming the gender of people. For example, when writing about teachers, a writer may find him or herself referring to a teacher as she without knowing the gender of the teacher. To avoid this, either vary the gender used to refer to people or avoid gender pronouns. Though this style of writing is not in widespread use, they have been employed in writing for gender neutral language by those who dislike the standard terms he, she, or singular they, like that. Nowadays, you can see people who entertain and use gender inclusive pronouns. Language privilege. Our language is for the most part a coincidence having to do with where we were born or raised, what our racial or ethnic background might be, and to some extent the education we receive. National Education Policy 2020 says that the medium of instruction until at least grade 5, but preferably till grade 8 and beyond, will be the home language or mother tongue or local language or regional language. Thereafter, the home or local language shall continue to be taught as a language wherever possible. This will be followed by both public and private schools. As an educator, my suggestion is to have 3 languages, preferably mother tongue, English, and any other language as per the future requirements, job opportunities, and life settlements. Nowadays, we come across people who know more than 5 languages. I have seen almost all Indian taxi drivers in Saudi Arabia and in Arab countries speak Arabic, English, Hindi, Urdu, Tamil, Malayalam, and any other regional languages like Kannadam and all. Indian nurses in the hospitals of Arab countries speak 5 languages. So this is up to the individual capability and interest. No language will be imposed on any state. Human rights. I don't talk about these pictures, and the pictures itself talking to you. Fine. Human rights are the basic rights and freedoms that belong to every person in the world, from birth until death. These basic rights are based on shared values like dignity, fairness, equality, respect, and independence. International Bill of Rights talks about the right to equality and freedom from discrimination, the right to life, liberty, and personal security, freedom from torture and degrading treatment, the right to equality before the law, the right to a fair trial, the right to privacy, freedom of belief and religion, freedom of opinion. Okay, the next privilege is handedness privilege. Discussion of handedness is one way to introduce the concept of privilege. Handedness does not carry the emotional charge attached to other differences in today's society. However, left-handed people face numerous daily obstacles, including the risk of accidents caused by operating instruments designed for right-handed people, right-handed users. Yet right-handed people are often unaware of the privileges they enjoy everywhere. In my university, there is one left pad attached chair in every row, and in a classroom, you can have at least six or seven chairs provided for left-handed learners. It is a beautiful inclusion of facility in the classrooms. I believe our Indian classrooms also have these facilities. Right-handedness is considered normal, while left-handedness has historically been perceived as deviant, dangerous, and sinister. Left-handed people frequently change their behaviors to fit into a right-handed world. Still, we have beliefs that we should receive money in the right hand, eat in the right hand, write in the right hand, and using left hand for all these matters are disrespect and bad mannered. The society may view left-handed people as awkward or strange, and left-handed people often believe this about themselves sometimes. My son is a dominant left-hander. In his young age, I compelled him to write in the right hand. The child couldn't cooperate and started avoiding writing, and later on he practiced writing. Except writing, he does all his work in the left hand only. Even now, I feel sorry for those days. I compelled him to practice writing in his right hand. Thank God, after a point of time, I started admiring his left hand practice and uniqueness. Unconscious bias against diversity and inclusion. As I said, we are all good people, but sometimes unconsciously we exclude people. Unconscious bias is an automatic mental shortcut used to process information and make decisions quickly. It is a human attitude and stereotype that people unconsciously attribute to another person or group of people that affect the person or group. Unconscious bias is otherwise called implicit bias, is often defined as prejudice or unsupported judgments in favor of or against one person or group as compared to another, in a way that is usually considered unfair. As a result of unconscious bias, certain people benefit and other people are penalized and excluded. Unconscious bias is something we are often unaware of, but which creates barriers that prevent diversity and inclusion in our community and society and workplace, especially damaging relationships that could foster creative and innovative ideas. Halo effect. Halo effect is sometimes called halo error. It is a cognitive bias. It is the tendency for positive impressions of a person, company, brand, or product in one area to positively influence one's opinion or feelings in other areas. Halo effect is a well-known cognitive bias. Many times, unconsciously, we judge someone, something, or someplace as likable and being positive based on a single positive aspect. The halo effect, which is a cognitive bias, can possibly prevent someone from accepting a person or a product or a brand based on the idea of an unfounded belief on what is good or bad. I would like to explain it with an example. Especially for the youngsters, it would be beneficial. Seeing the outward appearance of a boy to a girl or vice versa lead them to a marriage settlement. By merely seeing the outward appearance, They take major decisions, and finally, at the time when they realize it, everything, including a peaceful life, has gone from them. This is halo effect. They make constant error in judgments, and it is the reflection of their individual preferences. Some people go with their whims and fancies. They go with their choices and wishes, no matter how unreasonable it may seem. I can list out n number of such cases that comes every day. The Facebook and Instagram attractions are good examples. As teachers, it is our responsibility to educate our learners, value education, and decision-making skills. The another effect is called horn effect. It's another very interesting bias. It's also a cognitive bias. I prepared these comics using Pixton tool. As we are not discussing tools here, I'm not elaborating it. Two guys are now coming for an interview. One is average in merits and the other one is very smart. The manager selects a candidate with physical appearance, not giving importance to merits. Physical appearance is a major criteria for our inclusion and exclusion. I hope you all agree with me. Now, take just 10 seconds and see the picture. I'm sure you like the one who is lean and beautiful. Probably you will give the number 4 and 5 to the persons who are in second and third. It occurs when we let the overall appraisal of something be based on one negative trait. The horn effect is when you judge a person and attribute negative qualities to them based on one known quality. For example, physically unattractive people are perceived to be less trustworthy, even though there is no connection between knowledge, talents, morality, and physical appearance. The horn effect plays an important role in the hiring process. By seeing a mere appearance, people do exclusions that much more affected and collapsed many people's life. As a teacher, it is very hard to say that many teachers do favors and partiality to the learners. All horn effect. At home, parents, especially fathers, psychologically abuse their adolescent and adult children. We see it everywhere. Partner separation, anxiety, and yielding as a means of expression are all horn effects. Then comes affinity bias, like me tendency. Affinity bias is the unconscious tendency to get along with others whom are like us. It is easy to socialize and spend time with others who are like us. It requires more effort to bridge differences when diversity is present. Affinity bias or like me tendency lead us to favor people who are more like us. That is, they look like us, they sound like us, and they behave similarly to ourselves. With affinity bias, we would tend to ignore faults in people who are more like us and notice faults in people who are less like us. We exclude people in this way too. A well-known idiom says, birds of a feather flocks together, which essentially means that we naturally gravitate towards people who are more like ourselves, with whom we have more in common. Okay. May I request any one of the panel members who can unmute and help me saying the colors? Can I have a person, a panelist, can unmute and talk to me?
Hello, ma'am.
Yes, yes.
I like red and green.
Oh, fine. Yes, one more color you don't like. I think red and green you like the most, right? Hello? Hello? Okay. The next slide. Yes. Yes, anyone can answer. Yeah. Can anyone say read the color? Name the color of the word, not the word. Yes. Can you say the color?
Yellow, green, red,
Very good.
blue, red,
Very good.
green,
Very good. Thank
red.
you. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Excellent. So this is called Stroop Effect. John Ridley Stroop in the year 1930 described the Stroop effect. The, the Stroop test is a widely used, well-established methodology that reveals various brain functions and implicit cognitive workings. The Stroop effect is a phenomenon that occurs when you must say the color of a word but not the name of the word. In the first slide, you say the colors easily without hesitations because your brain is comfortable with the colors already known. In the second slide, colors and words did not match. It has created a mild, imperceptible hesitation. With the same hesitation, we exclude people who are not in our comfort zone. Stroop effect shows how our embedded knowledge about our environment impacts how we interact with it. Then comes conformity bias. In the first picture, people do not believe the inconvenient truth, but they confirm that the reassuring lie is better. With that confirmation, they exclude the inconvenient truth. Imagine that you have tried to reach a friend. This is an example. You are trying to reach a friend with whom you have a good relationship by phone or email, or you meet him personally for some time and leaving messages, WhatsApps, etc. Recently, you receive no calls from him in return. In a situation like this, it is easy to jump to conclusions in an intuitive manner that your friend wants to avoid you. Your mind easily confirms that your friend is avoiding you, and you start believing that your friend is definitely avoiding you. Of course, the danger is that you leave this belief unchecked in your mind and start to act as though it were true. Your mind tries to search reasons to give weight to your belief that your friend avoids you. With that belief, you start excluding your friend, and that is conformity bias. So conformity bias, this is a statement or a definition of American Psychological Association. Conformity bias is the tendency to look for information that supports rather than rejects one's perceptions, typically by interpreting evidence to confirm existing beliefs while rejecting or ignoring any conflicting data. Confirmation bias, that the tendency to process information with one's existing beliefs. This biased approach to decision making is largely unintentional and often results in ignoring inconsistent information. Existing beliefs can include one's expectations in a given situation and predictions about a particular outcome. Especially, people are likely to process information to support their own beliefs when the issue is highly important or self-relevant. For example, during the election season, people tend to seek positive information that paints their favorite candidates in a good light, and they will also look for information that casts the opposing candidate in a negative light. Then comes social comparison bias. Social comparison bias is having feelings of dislike and competitiveness with someone that is seen physically or mentally better than yourself. This is a definition of Wikipedia. Yes, misunderstandings, dislikes, groupisms, and ego clashes in the working place are mainly due to the social comparison bias. We constantly compare ourselves to others in order to develop a sense of individual or group identity. And we tend to see ourselves as better than or superior to other groups. We exclude many people in our working place and community with the mentality of social comparison bias. Then comes gender bias, sexual harassment and catcalling on the streets are prime examples of how women's right to walk freely around their environment is restricted. Gender stereotypes at school and work where girls should stay at home and help with housework and childcare and boys have education. But presently it is changing, I agree. But in slum areas, but in remote village areas, it's still happening. I can show a number of such villages in Tamil Nadu. Objectification and poor representation. Girls are treated as a commodity or an object without regard to their personality or dignity. In the media, women are photoshopped and airbrushed, leading to much more emphasis and value being put on their external appearance above their capacities. This effect that affects girls' body image, their self-esteem, and ultimately the value they put on themselves. Girls are represented poorly in entertainment and the media in ways that reinforce damaging gender stereotypes and traditional roles. Girls are showing in a reducive and unfair way. Performance reward bias occurs when employers, managers, and colleagues reward an employee of one gender differently from another gender. Rewards may be in the form of promotions, raises, or other merit-based rewards. Another one is called the glass ceiling. The glass ceiling is a metaphor for the evident but intangible hierarchical impediment that prevents minorities and women from achieving elevated professional success. Due to this bias, women and minorities experience a barrier that prevents them from reaching upper level roles in leadership and the C suit, not G suit. Because all our professors are running behind G suits now. So this is C suit. Most of the time, hiring managers are unconsciously gender biased, most of the time. Professional development and career advancements are affected by gender bias and it influences mentors and mentoring opportunities. That is reflection in comparison and rewards. Sexual harassment in the workplace affects gender differently. Bias in treating transgenders. Transgenders and gender diverse individuals often face, I'm sorry, they are always facing discrimination. No one can deny the fact that school peers and sometimes teachers are the major causes of the problems in their teenagers. And of course, family and siblings are also included. Do we really have a heart to give them a place in our midst? Do we really have a heart to give them a place in our midst? Please examine. Here and there, somewhere, very few are accepted and they achieved. But it is not the matter to say that transgenders are included. Yes, for survival, for food, and for shelter, they do illegal and bad things, I agree. But it is not the society and the family are responsible for the way of life. Let us examine ourselves. How much we are biased in treating them. When we meet them, while crossing a toll gate, do we say a good word with a smile or we mock at them? Diversity and inclusion will not come in one swing of a magic stick. My dears, diversity and inclusion will not come in one swing of a magic stick. It should come from our hearts and thoughts, from every one of us. It is not a matter to be discussed just for 7 days and go away minding my own business. Everybody is responsible. Everybody is responsible. Then comes contrast bias. It is a human tendency to mentally upgrade or downgrade an object when comparing it to a contrasting object. In selection, people often confuse. It can be either selecting a saree in pothis or selecting a life partner in marriages. Ikkareku akkare pachai mentality. Due to this bias, many times we go with the wrong choice and definitely exclude best people. We exclude best people. Ageism. Ageism is a age discrimination against individuals or groups on the basis of their age. This may be casual or systematic. In many occasions, aged people are treated unfairly. Ageism has great impacts on confidence, job prospects, financial situation, and quality of life. Organizations' attitude on old people is very severe in this pandemic. Aged people are targeted for terminations. I can say many examples happening around. One middle-aged man was terminated without prior notice, and he couldn't bear the shock, and he didn't want to face the family who completely depend on his salary. Jumped out from a 4-storied building, found dead. Happened just 1 week before in Chennai city. I don't want to show the photos. I'm just telling this. Unconscious name bias. This discrimination is rarely spoke about. It happens all the time, and its negative impact is enormous. Based on the meaning of the names, its pronunciation, its uniqueness, its gender affiliation, and its racial affiliation, people are discriminated. Someone will hear a name, and if the name doesn't register or it is uncomfortable with, they may treat the persons differently without even knowing what they are doing it. If a name sounds African, Indian, or anything non-Western, people may make assumptions about the person or rule them out of opportunities. In general, people assume that someone with a double-barreled surname is privileged or posh. But it is the racial element that makes this kind of bias so damaging. Then, physically challenged. Most of us believe that we are fair and equitable and evaluate others based on objective facts. We say, I know my mind, I am able to access others in a fair and accurate way. But in fact, even the most egalitarian have unconscious bias. They are triggered automatically in a fraction of a second without their unconscious awareness or intention, and cause attitudes about the preferences for people based on characteristics such as age, gender, disability, and religion. Nowadays, physically challenged people are in our midst in higher educational classrooms. Do we have infrastructures for their convenience? Do we have a session or at least a collection of braille books in our libraries? We have very big libraries in most of the reputed colleges. Do we? I don't know. I don't know. For 10 years, I'm not here. I really don't know. Maybe you have one cupboard at least for the visual challenged people. I really don't know. Do we have ramp facilities for the physically challenged students to get access to our buildings easily with their wheelchairs? We do witnessing the struggles they face in our educational institutions. I agree, there is awareness started creating now. I don't say we purposely avoid them or not helping them, but there are some blind spots in our brain which make some blocks or disassociations in our mind creates undesirable consequences, regardless of the goodness of our conscious intentions. What are the blind spots or mind bugs that blocks our good intention of accepting diversity and inclusion? It was written on the back of a truck, if you cannot see your mirror, I cannot see you. I'm not talking about the blind spots in our eyes, but the blind spots in our brain and subconscious mind. Apart from being biased in the matters discussed above, we have so many blind spots. Blind spot is actually a metaphor, talks about human behavior. Blind spots or mind bugs refer to the unconscious triggers and associations made by our brains that are often hidden to us because they are embedded preferences, not reflective ones. The blind spots often bother us because they are at direct odds with our chosen beliefs. The brain contains an unconscious warehouse full of associations between certain people and particular characteristics that often causes misidentify our fellow humans. Social mindbug is a very dangerous matter of diversity and inclusion. Once, I had to fly from one place to other. I was flying for a very urgent work. I got a seat near the pilot's cabin. To my unpleasant surprise, two lady pilots got inside all of a sudden and they entered the cabin very casually and very stylishly moved to the cabin. Seeing the lady pilots, immediately I had a feel like jumping out of the flight. I strongly believed only male pilots can handle aircrafts. In many circumstances, we don't realize that there is a better stuff is inside every person capable of being inclusive. I'll tell you another incident. A father and his son have a car accident. The father dies at the scene and the son, badly injured, is rushed to the hospital. In the operation theater, the surgeon looks at the boy and says, I can't operate on this boy because he is my son. How could this possibly be the case? How could the surgeon be the boy's father when the story started that the dad died in the same car and the boy to the emergency room? What are we missing here? In case, if you are stumped at I was, the solution is very simple. The doctor is the boy's mother. In our brain, we make some unconscious associations, and that is why my mind was associated pilots with adult males, and in the second incident, doctors with adult males. We know pretty well that females are doctors too, and female pilots are everywhere, but we instinctively react, and this is what psychologists call disassociation. And it has undesirable consequences regardless of the goodness of our conscious intentions. With these blind spots or mind bugs, we exclude many people around us. For no reasons, we avoid some street vendors, some efficient doctors, some schools, some teachers and students, what not. It is a very big list. Now we enter into a Padlet session. So far, we have seen all types of bias and mind bugs. Now it is time to react. There is a QR code visible in the screen. Take your mobiles and scan the QR code. You will enter into a Padlet interface. Participants who are watching the session in a smartphone can take up the URL code and enter it into the Padlet screen. As one step forward to entertain diversity and inclusion, type two of your genuine future decisions, please, to bring inclusion and decision for not disturbing inclusion. To bring inclusion and decision for not disturbing inclusion in your classrooms, in your neighborhood, in your country, or in the world. Your genuine decisions will be the success of this 7 days international online webinar. I request all the participants, either you can scan this QR code or you can go with the URL which will be posted in the chat box now. You can also write your mistakes. It's okay if you don't write your names. Your heartfelt decisions and thoughts are much more important. Yes, I'm getting responses. Yes, you can see the responses. One step. Yes, stubborn. Yes, mingle all students. Thank you. Love one and all. Thank you. Yes. Yes, thank you, participants. Thank you very much. I'm happy. I'm really happy. Love one and all. Love empathy. Mingle students. Nice. Have faith. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Okay, very good. Fine, fine. Love one and all. Yes. Develop positive attitude. Very good, very good, very good. Respecting uniqueness of every person. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Consider and care. Very good, very good. We should love and respect every individual. Fantastic, fantastic, excellent, excellent. Dr. Pramod has written a very interesting matter. Love one and all, empathy. Excellent, 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 excellent. I'll collect all your opinions, all your polling ideas, and I'll submit it to Dr. Sivasakti Rajamma. And this will be the success of this program ideas. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot for your wonderful, wonderful, wonderful response. I salute you all. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. Now let us have a very short video. Of course, it will go up to 6 or 7 minutes. One gentle participant raised a question to one of the resource person about this national education policy, and Madam answered very well. But I would like to show it as a short video. It consists of 6 minutes. Bear with me. And it is the only big video. I will not take much of your time. It is about only the inclusion is mentioned in the policy 2020. That is National Education Policy 2020. Hello friends, welcome to this video. This video describes about Equitable and Inclusive Education, National Education Policy 2020. I am Dr. Evangeline Whitehead, created and presenting this video. Education is the greatest tool for achieving social justice and equality. Inclusive and equitable society is a place where every citizen has the opportunity to dream, thrive, and contribute to the nation. The educational system of India aims that no children loses opportunity to learn because of birth and background. This national education policy reaffirms that aim and progress towards its achievement. Part 1. School education. Trained and qualified social workers from civil society organizations will be connected to schools dealing with empowerment of persons with disabilities at the state and district level. Children with disabilities will be enabled to fully participate in the regular schooling process from the foundational stage to higher education. One-on-one teachers and tutors, peer tutoring, open schooling, appropriate infrastructure, and suitable technological interventions to ensure access can be particularly effective for certain children with disabilities. Special educators with cross-disability training, especially for children with severe or multiple disabilities. Secondary specializations will be included in the curriculum of teacher education. Every student will take a fun course, a vocational training during grades 6 to 8. All students will participate in a 10-day bagless period, sometimes during the 10 days course. Bagless days will be encouraged throughout the year for various types of enrichment activities involving arts, quizzes, sports, and vocational crafts. Socio-economically disadvantaged groups can be broadly categorized based on gender identities, particularly female and transgender individuals. Educational facilities will be provided to students from socio-cultural identities such as scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, OBCs, and minorities, geographical identities such as students from villages, small towns, and aspirational districts. Educational facilities will be provided to students with disabilities, including learning disabilities. Socio-economic conditions such as migrant communities, low-income households, children in vulnerable situations, victims of or children of victims of trafficking, orphans including child beggars in urban areas, and the urban poor. Bridging these children belonging to scheduled castes will continue to be one of the major goals. Government of India will constitute a gender inclusion fund to build the nation's capacity to provide equitable quality education for all girls as well as transgender students. Inclusion fund schemes shall also be developed to address analogous access issues for other socio-economic disadvantaged groups. A new National Assessment Center, PARAP, a very smart digital examination platform, will formulate guidelines and recommend appropriate tools for conducting students' assessment from the foundational stage to higher education, including for entrance exams, in order to ensure equitable access and opportunities for all students with learning disabilities. Part 2. Higher education. Steps to be taken by governments for higher education. Earmark suitable government funds for the education of socio-economic disadvantaged groups. Set clear targets for higher cross-enrollment ratio for socio-economic disadvantaged groups. Enhance gender balance in admissions to higher educational institutions. Enhance access by establishing more high-quality higher educational institutions in aspirational districts and special education zones containing larger number of socio-economic disadvantaged groups. Develop and support technology tools for better participation and learning outcomes. Steps to be taken by all higher educational institutions. Make admissions process more inclusive. Make curriculum more inclusive. Increase employability potential of higher education programs. Develop more degree courses taught in Indian languages and bilingually. Ensure all buildings and facilities are wheelchair accessible and disabled friendly. Develop rich courses for students that come from disadvantaged educational backgrounds. Ensure sensitization of faculty, counselor, and students on gender identity issue and its inclusion in all aspects of the higher educational institutions. Strictly enforce all no discrimination and anti-harassment rules. Mitigate opportunity costs and fees for pursuing higher education and provide scholarships to socio-economically disadvantaged students. Provide socio-emotional and academic support through suitable counseling and mentoring programs. Develop institutional development plans that contain specific plans for action on increasing participation from socio-economic disadvantaged groups. Thank you for watching. Thank you for watching. Inclusive pedagogy in diverse learning environments. I'll take another 15 minutes and I'll explain it and then I'll finish it. Inclusion is not a set of strategies. Inclusion is not a placement issue. Inclusion is about belonging to a community or a group of friends, as a community or a neighborhood. If your student feels strange and doesn't get a feeling of belonging in your classroom in any way, their inclusion doesn't happen. Teacher's instruction comes there to help the learner in the situation. Instruction is not just teaching. Instruction is intentional. Instruction makes the learner more comfortable in the classroom and more successful. Success is not only meritorious, but the all-round personality development of a learner. Inclusion is something that should happen in the mind of a teacher. Good instruction leads to good outcome. A good instructional strategy is required for a good inclusive education. What students learn in inclusive classroom? First one is membership. Membership is an outcome of inclusive instruction where the learners feels a physical, mental, and emotional accommodation in the classroom and participate in all the instructional strategies and activities in a meaningful way. Then comes relationship. Relationship is how a learner mingles with peers and teachers in a one-to-one basis in the classroom. There he receives help and he gives help to other peers in the classroom. Then comes skill. Skill is another outcome. These things together called inclusive education. I get a mild disturbance there. Is there any problem? Today's students need to be prepared to succeed with a more diverse and more global workforce than ever before. Research has shown that more diverse organizations make better decisions with better results. The effects of socio-economic diversity can be especially powerful for students from low-income families who historically often have not have equal access to the resources they need to success. Diversity in the classroom is a valuable opportunity to enrich student learning. Diversity in pedagogy, curricula, and student identities help enable critical thinking, communication, and problem-solving competencies required to impart impactful learning for present-day students. Effective strategies for inclusive classroom. Teachers who teach outside their cultural setup and do not have familiarities with the learners and their learning styles. It is valuable for them to learn about the identities and backgrounds in their classroom. I use anecdotal records for every individual student to note down their prior education system, perceived learning preferences, and it helped me to know and acknowledge diversity in my team and follow up with individual students to make sure their needs are being met. I considered for mandatory office hours appointments for students. Of course, it was a part of our schedule. Ask about their transition to college and prior educational experiences. Meet them frequently on a one-on-one basis. Examine your own bias and consider where they may have originated. Excuse me. Yes, examine your own bias and consider where they may have originated. Use third person's point of view. Don't make comparisons and choose words carefully if comparisons required. Use specific when write about people. The same is true when describing people's cultures and ethnicities. Use inclusive words in the classroom, inclusive activities in your lesson plans. Validate the experiences and feelings of people, not the color and caste. Avoid jokes or statements related to community, caste, and color. By cracking a joke related to any particular community, exclude them. As elders, we sow poison in the minds of youngsters. In the classroom, If you are not comfortable or do not feel safe being confrontational, try to break down their thought process and ask questions. Remember, if you don't say anything or laughing along, that implies that you agree. Remove negative expectations and set the right expectations. Often get feedback and give feedback. Teachers need diversity training. Diversity training asks teachers to understand their students' backgrounds. Implicit bias training goes a step further and asks teachers to look at themselves. Teachers need training to handle challenged students in the classroom. Many students with disabilities spend most of their days in a general education classrooms. But the teachers, they often lack training in how to meet their needs. National Education Policy 2020 has plans for all these drawbacks, and hopefully they will implement these matters shortly. Teachers to be trained on a host of non-academic issues, they have to identify people with mentality of suicide ideas, and they have to get training of this suicide prevention, to food allergies, to sexual assault, or identifying transgenders in the classrooms, etc. Then comes solution tree partners in the department or staff room to be encouraged. Solution tree partners with the brightest minds in education have to join with every teacher to develop the services and preparing suitable teaching tools to use in the inclusive classrooms. Then have intergroup contact. Meet and engage with individual members or groups of other schools. Individualization. Consider the attributes of the individual apart from his group or her group. Focus on his or her individual characteristics, traits, interests, and preferences, rather than stereotypes about persons. Form peer groups in the class itself to support the individuals with disabilities in any form. Perspective talking. Try to understand from students' perspective what they encounter and what adaptive techniques they might use to function successfully. Self-monitoring appraisals. Continuously self-monitor your perceptions, your judgments, behaviors, decisions, and actions to check for the influence of implicit bias. Write all your behaviors in the appraisal and cancel whichever is not right and correct yourself. Write all your negatives and bias in a paper. Strike it out, crush the paper, and throw it away. This activity is a psychological practice of deleting negatives in your subconscious mind. Of course, it is a kind of blind spot which helps you to believe that all your negatives have gone out. Avoid microaggressions in the classrooms. It is a great insult to your students. Microaggressions include religion, physical ability, gender, or appearance, are not life-threatening by nature, but they are still dangerous. Do not participate in gripe sessions about students. Faculty members who gripe about students are establishing a culture of failure for their students, their department, and their own teaching. Inclusive lesson plans. So, inclusive lesson plans consist of the range of approaches to teaching that consider the diverse needs and backgrounds of all students to create a learning environment where all students feel valued and where all students have equal access to learn. While preparing a lesson plan, think about different activities which should be suitable to everyone in the class. Make your lessons into small portions and introduce interactive activities as given in the slide. It is just an idea. Here is a sample lesson plan. You can take this idea, make flipped classroom so that you can have higher order thinking activities, include everyone in the classroom. For example, greeting and introduction, attention seeking questions. Activity 1, include all learners. Teachers input 1, participatory activity related to that input, first input, and interactive videos, teacher input 2, participatory activity 2, related to the second input, interactive games, teacher input 3, if you have time, and recall, review, and give worksheets and individual attention and end up the session. excuse me, active learning strategies to include all learners together. You can use discussions, role play, debates, 1-minute paper reflections, pausing, 3-step interviews, case studies, peer collaboration, etc. Like inquiry-based learning, discovery-based learning, experiential learning, all these things will be very, very useful for an inclusive classroom. You can use video making tools like Render Forest, Animaker, Edpuzzle, Pixten, OpenShot, etc. So we come to the last part of the session. Diverse classrooms contribute to students' emotional intelligence, improving empathy and perspective taking in ways that prepare them to thrive personally and professionally. Learning among diverse peers and professors inculcates critical thinking abilities, promoting students to challenge their own received wisdom and culturally bonded assumptions. Properly cultivated diversity in the classroom expands students' interpretive capacity, showing how particular content can be approached from multiple angles. Diverse classrooms promote listening and expression and teamwork across different communication styles. Student diversity also contribute to professional growth and satisfaction. I come to the conclusion, and there is a small story. I hope you heard about Pygmalion effect. Pygmalion effect is a beautiful thing, which is always considered in the classroom. Positive expectations influence performance positively, and negative expectations influence performance negatively. Pygmalion effect is a phenomenon in which the greater the expectation placed upon people, often children, students, and employees, the better they perform. This poet was a Roman poet called Ovid. In his Metamorphoses, book 10, relates that Pygmalion, a sculptor, Pygmalion was a sculptor in our hero. He totally disgusted by a group of prostitutes, and he starts hating all women and swears off all women. But certainly, he has ideas about an ideal woman with beautiful beauty and noble characters. As he is a sculptor, he goes to his studio and decides to sculpt his ideal woman out of ivory. Pygmalion makes the statue so beautiful, pouring all his great ideas of a great woman to his total expectations, an ideal of womanhood. After finishing it, he himself admires his own statue and falls in love with it. There comes a festival of his god, and he prays that the goddess will give him a wife just like the statue. So the goddess decides to do him a favor and brings this statue to life. The statue becomes a real woman, and she and Pygmalion got married and have 2 children. And this is the end of the story. If parents and teachers expect enhanced performance from students, definitely students show that enhancement. Teachers' high expectations and their motivational words about their learners' future success has miraculous effect on their learners' progress. This is not magic, but it is psychological. N number of longitudinal researchers have proved this. Never first get failure in the classroom. If you know a test is particularly difficult, tell your students that the test is difficult, but that you are surely will win. You motivate your students like that, and don't, and they will definitely win that exam. And another opposite to this Pygmalion effect is called Golem effect. That is entirely opposite. Golem effect is a psychological phenomenon in which lower expectations placed upon individuals, either by supervisors or teachers and parents, lead to poor performance by the individual. It is a form of self-fulfilling prophecy. So use Pygmalion effect and don't use this Golem effect in your inclusive classrooms. The destiny of a nation is shaped in its classrooms. The following video shows the best practices of an inclusive classroom, the takeaway of this session. we should be aware of our own mind bugs. Diversity and inclusion is in our midst. Yes, of course. As a beautiful ivory statue, it is our responsibility to give life to the beautiful statue of diversity and inclusion. Inclusion is a celebration of diversity. It is a privilege. If we care about diversity, then we can make inclusion come true. With smart instructional strategies and practices, we facilitate actions where everyone benefits. This is the power and promise of inclusion. Make sure everyone is supported, everyone is accepted, and everyone benefits. As a token of respect and gratitude for inviting me as a resource person in the chain of international conferences and webinars of Tamil Nadu Teachers Education University, I would like to gift my National Education Policy 2020 videos. There are 3 videos to our Honorable Vice Chancellor of Tamil Nadu Teachers Education University for using it for the student teachers of the university and to all students of India. I extend my sincere thanks to all who have connected to this international webinar. With these words, I'm Dr. Evangeline signing off. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for such an empowering session, ma'am.
Thanks a lot. Thank you very much.
Dr. Evangeline, madam, very nice session we had, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. Thank you very much.